Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. My name is Elizabeth, and I've got something special for you today because, as you might know, a day is approaching that is anticipated by many and dreaded by many others. I'm talking about Valentine's Day, which is why I brought a guest on my YouTube channel today. He is giving Catholic dating advice on Twitter, and as he's painfully accurate oftentimes, I really wanted to make this video. Please enjoy. Hi, Chad. I'm really glad that you're on my channel today. Maybe you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Okay. So my name is, well, my middle name is Chad, and that's too good a meme to just not exploit for publicity. And so my middle name's Chad. You can all call me Chad. This is the internet. We don't have to be particular about, which name came first in the birth certificate.
Understandable.
So I'm Chad. I accidentally became a dating guru for Catholics on Twitter. I have no idea how it happened, but I'm here to bring what I'm doing on Twitter, maybe help out the YouTube community.
I've found you on Twitter, and for whatever reason, you're painfully accurate when you give your dating advice. And that's why I wanted to make this video today. Maybe we can talk today about the most common misconceptions people have about, or Catholics have, about the respective opposite sex when dating. What's the thing that you see oftentimes? For example, maybe we can start talking about attractiveness. How important is that? Because as Catholics, we should try to avoid vanity. But on the other hand, we have eyes that we tend to use. And so what would you say, how important is physical attractiveness in Catholic dating?
So this is actually a really fun one because basically everybody believes that physical attractiveness is the most important thing. The seculars believe this. Catholics sometimes will say they don't believe it, but then for themselves, they're like, well, I'm not attractive enough. So we say that we don't believe it, but we secretly do. And there are a lot of things like that, but it matters less than you'd think. A painful thing to accept is that you're probably more attractive than you think. Now, so everyone's a bit more attractive than they think and slightly less intelligent than they think, and so it's like, well, mixed blessing. So one undoubtedly somewhat more attractive than you think, but you still might not be conventionally attractive, or at least believe that you're conventionally attractive. And that doesn't really seem to track with marriage outcomes. It's like, well, plenty of people who would not describe themselves as conventionally attractive are getting married. You see couples, well, you don't walk down the street and then every couple is Arnold Schwarzenegger and I can't remember, like stereotypical actresses who are beautiful. It's like Marilyn Monroe.
Jolie, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't walk down the street and then everyone's either single, or if there's a couple holding hands, it's like, well, Arnold and Angelina Jolie. It's like, that's not the world we live in. And so if you're like, oh, I'm not X, Y, and Z, then it won't work. And so can you work on certain things? Can you work out and be healthy? And that helps your disposition, helps your mood, helps you sort of have a nice glow. It's like, that's all good stuff. But we don't actually believe that.
I'd say that guys oftentimes worry about the wrong things. For example, I've seen guys worry about their height, and I don't know why it's probably a myth in my opinion that all women want a 6 feet tall guy. I don't understand why that's a myth out there, because it's certainly not true for every woman. And also, there's no point in worrying about your height because you can change it. Things you can change is, for example, your health, and that's a big one you can work on. So I'd say that I wouldn't advocate for losing weight by any terms, because I've seen how restrictive eating has destroyed people's lives. It can lead to eating disorders, so that's not a good thing. But try to exercise, try to get outside, go in the sun, eat healthy, and that will automatically make that person more attractive, and they don't have to be 6 feet tall to be more attractive. What would you say?
So it's absolutely that, but it's even more than that. So height is a huge fixation for guys. So there are some women who care about height and there are some who don't. So both sexes fail at understanding. It's like, well, different people are attracted to different things. So we get an idea in our head. It's like, well, if there's somebody who finds height attractive, therefore height is attractive, rather than, well, that's one camp thinks height's attractive and the other ones want something else. It's a we have an idea in our heads of what's attractive, and so women do this too. It's like, oh, my eye color isn't the most attractive, and then every eye color, whether it's blue, green, or brown, they think it's one of the other ones. So they never give themselves the benefit of the doubt. They never think that they're on the winning side of the end all be all attractiveness rules. And so one, self-esteem issues that are expressed through what you imagine is the optimal attractive thing to be. And so people will make up what the beauty standards are, or what the aesthetic standards are, or what the human standards are. So we do this on more superficial things. Like it's an excellent thing to pray a rosary every day. You pray a rosary every day, great, congratulations, a good thing. But nobody in the dating market within Catholicism, or I suppose outside Catholicism, but nobody's like, oh, if I pray the rosary every day, then I'll get a boyfriend. It's like, well, nobody's quite making that leap, but they do make the leap of, oh, if my eyes were a different color, oh, if I dressed differently, am I dressing too modestly? Am I dressing too immodestly? Am I tall enough? Am I too short? We make up things, some of which are completely beyond our control, like height, and then we make them the end all be all.
Yeah, I totally agree. People oftentimes overestimate the impact a certain characteristic has on their overall attractiveness. For example, another thing I see a lot is guys who worry about not being muscular enough. And I've seen a meme somewhere on the internet that lifting gets you guys and not girls.
Yes.
Because if you lift, other guys are impressed. And because they think that it gets you girls, but in fact, it just gets you guys who ask you for advice on how to build muscle. So for women, it's not that attractive. I'd say, what are other things people look for other than physical attractiveness, in your opinion?
Oh, so the thing that so the thing that a guy really must have is a sense of humor. So if you can't make chicks laugh, well, work on that. So sense of humor, absolutely critical. In fact, the most critical thing, and that's the thing that you can work on. It's and then there's like, people have the conception that it's like, oh, I have to make X amount of money for a woman to pay attention to me. It's like not within Catholicism, and honestly, it's overrated even in secular circles. It's like, no, just be funny and have the confidence to actually talk to women. Half the guys I talk to about not having a girlfriend, they're I don't ask this first because I usually assume, but shame on me for assuming. They haven't actually talked to women. They have this idea that, oh, well, the women are over there. They're mysterious and different and incomprehensible. And they're simply not. They're different, but they're not that different. You can just walk up and talk to them. It's they don't shoot you for making eye contact, not even in Texas. And so it's just talk to them and don't. And then the guys who are very good at talking to women will often just talk to them for instrumental reasons. You showed me that clip where the guy is like walks up to the girl and then like grabs her hand and checks for a ring, and it's like, well, you can't be doing that either. Just talk to them. So it's almost like rule zero, the rule that you don't know that you need to hear, but it's like, well, women are also people who have interests, and they don't want to be. It's like, well, I'm breeding chattel. It's like, no, no chick is really into that. It's like walk up and it's like, oh, I'm afraid it's a woodland fairy creature. Oh no, I have to avert my gaze. Or breeding chattel, and these are both traps that dudes will fall into, and then they'll think themselves unworthy as well.
I absolutely agree. And another thing I'd like to add is, or another thing I think that guys underestimate how important that is to develop a certain interest or a skill, because in my opinion, that makes them more attractive. Because in our day and age, it's not that important that a guy can lift, I don't know, 300 pounds or something like that, but it's more important that he is intellectually, for example, impressive, or that he is capable of navigating in our modern society, and strength just doesn't help with that. Or it doesn't have to be an intellectual skill, maybe some other interest, because I think that if a guy shows interest and he shows that he's capable of keeping that interest for more than 6 months, that shows a sort of loyalty, and that shows that he's capable of committing to something and sticking with that. What would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Like I know a guy who does carpentry occasionally, and so can you walk up to a woman in public and say, hey, I do carpentry? And then they're like, oh, cool, let's get married. It's like, well, it won't quite work like that. But it's but just watching them build a fence, just like, oh, it's time to rebuild the fence that the wind knocked over because it's a very windy city. It's like, well, it's like, yeah, this is impressive. There are all sorts of things that. So if you've been doing something consistently for a year, now most guys recognize this in video games, but you should be doing it for something other than video games. But once you've done something for a year, you're pretty good at it. And so you need to have things that you're good at that are impressive. It's like, oh, but doesn't that mean she doesn't love me for me? It's like, well, what is the you? You have to be consistently doing something.
Exactly.
You have to have.
Yes.
You're trying to.
What is the you without the things that you can or that make you up? Because the same thing. That's an observation I've made from the other side as well. Oftentimes women worry that the guy doesn't love her for herself, but for her outer appearance. But who is she without her appearance? Like, we aren't ghosts. We have a body, and that body is looked at by other people. So that's a good one that you brought that up. Yeah, exactly. What is the you stripped from everything exterior? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a tendency. So we've got tendencies in secularism where one's to say it's like, oh, we're only our outer trappings, and this is the entire secular setup. This is hookup culture. This is all of that. And then there's our tendency as Christians is to say, well, it's just the things on the inside. And it's well, you kind of need both. If you're talking to them and talking to somebody, you're glancing into their inner world. We've all got this inner world, and then we've got, not trying to dichotomize this, not trying to be too Gnostic, but we do have this inner life, and then we've got our external life. And it's like, well, both have to be interesting and mutually compatible. It's it'd be awkward. It'd be awkward if you were, sorry, if you're an 8-foot tall guy dating a 5-foot tall chick. It's like, well, that's just somewhat incompatible. People make it work, but it's a lot, and you need something. You need similar inner lives. You need similar things that you can relate to with each other. Well, also, it's well, what do you do? If like dudes will complain, oh, she asked me what I do for work, and what I do for work isn't particularly high status. And it's like, well, so what? The fact that you're doing something is important. It's a part of who you are. It's how you spend 8 hours a day. This is a facet of you that's not superficial.
One situation where I think that is especially apparent, the importance of both the exterior and the interior, is online dating. Because maybe you've made a similar observation on Catholic Match, for example. People on Catholic Match, they might have the most beautiful interior life. They might be the most holy people, but especially the guys aren't able to take good pictures of themselves. And that's a problem, I'd say. What's your take on this?
So I'm a convert, and so nobody be scandalized by the fact that I've used Tinder. So I've used Tinder and then met people in real life from Tinder. And I've used Catholic Match, and then I've seen people who I know in real life on Catholic Match. And then I've had gal pals do the same and then scope out the guys I know. And so within secularism, everyone knows how to take the picture at the right angle and make them look the best. So seculars take pictures that make them look better than they actually are. And Catholics, it's not just that we take pictures that are accurate, because that'd be fine. Catholics have evolved a technique to make ourselves look massively, massively worse than we do in real life. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
I can go through the Catholic Match, and it's like, no, this is a gorgeous woman who I know, and nobody who's just looking at this profile is going to know that at all. We don't need to keep it a secret. We've got a tremendous. We're basically employing cryptography to make sure nobody is interested in us for superficial reasons. But we're going a bit overboard. We don't need to. This is not classified information. And so, learning to take good pictures. So we all need to practice this, especially if we're doing online, which I highly recommend.
I absolutely agree with this, and I wouldn't say that it's important to have like a ton of pictures, but one good profile picture. For example, your not Tinder, but Twitter profile picture is excellent, and if that's the only good picture you have, that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. It's an accurate representation of what you look like, what you can look like, and that's enough. And I would say that's not vanity to have one good picture of yourself. That's good marketing. And also, if we look at the people on YouTube, YouTubers, Catholic YouTubers, they are above average attractive usually. Not all of them, most of them. But for example, Father Mike Schmitz, we don't watch him just because he's attractive, but it helps. And that's important. That's the same thing in real life. You just like to engage with people who look nice, who look put together, who and that starts at online dating. You just don't want to talk to a person that is physically unattractive.
And
I would say,
yeah, it's a physical attractive in the way that it's a day-to-day choice. So during there was a big financial scandal, and then the CEO of the company had a so he was mostly clean shaven, but he had like a tiny bubble of hair that he didn't bother to cut, just right under one nostril. And it's like, okay, we're not saying that you need to be genetically well endowed with, you don't need to be Adonis. But the amount of effort that you put into your appearance does make a difference. If Father Mike Schmitz, handsome as he is, if he like stopped shaving except for, or if he shaved, but there was a patch here and then a patch here, then maybe a patch here that he just was so negligent in shaving. It's like, well, your diligence in grooming is going to say a lot about your diligence in a lot of things. It's like, okay, so if you're a Catholic online and you've got like a patch of hair here that you just haven't bothered to shave, then it's like, well, you also say your rosary with 8 Hail Marys per decade. You're just not, you're just being sloppy, and you're telling people how sloppy you are. And I don't recommend.
Beautiful comparison. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe to recapitulate, to summarize, I'd say that we just discussed that it's important to both care for your interior life and for the exterior life. And don't worry about things you can't change, but try to make the best out of the things you have and you can change, and care for your health spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I think that things will just fall into place, I hope at least. That's been it for today. I hope you liked the video. See you next week, and bye, Chad. Maybe we'll see each other again.
Oh, I hope so. See ya.